My name is Kayla. This week I am going to be showing you how you can make paper mache. This week it's less about the actual craft itself and more just about how to make it. Paper mache can be used for a lot of different things, but I'm just going to be using a balloon today and showing you how to make a regular bowl. So what you're going to need is something to mix with, a bowl, some measuring cups, and then you're going to need about a cup of flour and a cup of water. So first you want to add about a cup of flour, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, and then once you've got that, you can add a cup of water. Just like that. Now it doesn't have to be exactly 1 cup of water or exactly 1 cup of flour, but it's good to make sure that you have a 1-to-1 ratio. Like I had a cup of water and a cup of flour, so if you needed to make more, you could do 2 cups of water and 2 cups of flour, or less, which is just half of each. But then you can just go ahead and get a spoon and stir it around. It's going to be very thick and gluey, but you want to make sure you get it as mixed as you can with no bumps in the middle. And then once it's smooth like that, the last thing that you want to do is add a little bit of salt. So because you're making the paper mache mixture with flour instead of regular glue, sometimes it can mold when it's drying. So you want to make sure that you add the salt because you don't want it to do that while it's drying. Okay, so now that you've got that mixture, you can just go ahead and set it aside. And then you can grab the paper that you're going to be using for the paper mache. So a lot of people like to use newspaper, but I didn't have any handy at the moment, so I'm just going to be using scraps from school. But a good rule of thumb is making sure that the paper is thin enough to soak up the water and flour mixture. If you're going to be using thicker paper, you might have to let it sit and soak in the mixture for a little bit longer, but I'm just going to go ahead and use old printer paper that I used in school. Okay, and then the next step is to just go ahead and apply it to the balloon. So like I said, I was just going to be using a balloon to do a very basic bowl. But one thing that you're going to want is something to hold the balloon in place. So I'm just going to use the measuring cup that I was earlier, and I'm just going to put it not side down. Okay, and once you're here, you've got 2 options. You could either use your fingers, just dip it in the paper mache and put it on, or you could use a paintbrush. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a paintbrush. Okay, so you can just take your first strip and then put it in the mixture. Then you want to make sure that both sides are covered in the paper mache. And then you can just go ahead and put it on the top of the balloon. And then you're going to want to get more on your paintbrush or on your fingers if you're using your fingers. And then paste it down. And then no matter what you're using, you're probably going to have air bubbles in it, like you can see right there. You just want to go ahead and push those out as best you can. And then you just want to repeat that process with all of the rest of your slips. Okay, so I have now my full balloon plastered in the pieces of paper that I made. I would suggest only using a couple of layers the first time around. You can always add more layers afterwards, but I would only suggest using 2 or 3 and then letting it dry completely before you do anything else. And that is the next step. I'm going to go ahead and hang it from a string from the knot on the bottom of the balloon to let it dry. If you're going to end up doing something like that as well, I would suggest having some newspaper underneath it to make sure you catch any of the drips that it might make. But I'm just going to go ahead and let it do that. It should take it anywhere between a few hours, maybe even overnight, depending on how much paper mache you have on there. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so it's been a full day and my balloon is now completely dried. You can hear that it's very solid. So the next step is to just go ahead and pump the balloon. And then if you're planning on painting your paper mache, I would suggest spraying it with some acrylic spray as well, just to make sure that you can get it all set in. If you don't have any acrylic spray, you can use emulsion paint. It's just what they use on walls. So as you can see, I now have the bowl. It's a little loose up in the top because I only used one layer, but down on the bottom it's much harder because I used 2 and sometimes 3, I think, on the bottom layers of the paper. But yeah, the last step would be to trim it, spray it with some acrylic sealing paint or some emulsion paint if you have any, and then you can just go ahead and paint it. Paper mache is very useful when it comes to making little things like bowls or pencil cases, but also making like full-size props if you like to do that. So I would highly suggest using paper mache to do that because it is very sturdy when you use multiple layers of it. But that is going to be it for this week's video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again this time next week. Bye-bye.